You ever get that feeling? Like life is quietly passing you by? Not in a dramatic way, just small moments. You're scrolling, and someone just bought a new car. Another person is posting from an airport. Someone else just moved into a bigger place. And you pause for a second. You look around your own life. And this thought creeps in. What am I doing wrong? Because you're not lazy. You're working. You're trying. You're doing what you're supposed to do, but somehow, it feels like everyone else is moving faster. And here's the part that hits the hardest. It doesn't feel fair. Now let's slow that down for a second. Because what I'm about to say might change how you see all of it. Most of what you're looking at isn't wealth. It's performance. Let that sit for a moment. Performance. Because there's a difference between building a life and displaying one. And today, those two things look almost identical on the surface. But underneath, they couldn't be more different. Think about the last time you saw someone show off something expensive, a car, a watch, a vacation. It looks like success, it feels like success. But what you don't see is what it cost them to show it. Not just money, pressure, stress, expectations. Because the moment you start showing a certain lifestyle, you don't just get attention, you get responsibility. Now people expect you to stay there, to keep up that level, to maintain it. And that's where things start to shift. What used to feel like a reward becomes a burden. Now you're not buying things because you want them. You're buying them because you can't go backwards. You've already shown the world who you are, or at least who you appear to be. And stepping down from that feels like failure. So you keep going, upgrading, spending, stretching, trying to hold a version of your life that might not even be real. And slowly, without noticing, you build a life that looks good, but feels heavy. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because not everyone is playing that game. There's another group of people. You don't notice them. They don't stand out. They're not trying to. You could be around them every day and never think twice. They wear simple clothes, drive normal cars, live in places that don't scream anything. And yet, these are often the people who are actually ahead. Not because they got lucky, not because they earned the most, but because they made a different decision early on. They decided not to perform. They decided to build. And that one decision changes everything, because when you stop trying to impress people, you remove one of the biggest expenses in your life, not just financially, mentally, emotionally. You stop asking, how does this look? And start asking, does this make sense for me? And those are two completely different questions. Let me give you a simple example. Two people earn the same amount, same job, same income. One decides to upgrade everything immediately. Better car, better apartment, more visible lifestyle. The other keeps things simple, not extreme, just controlled. Now fast forward 5 years. From the outside, the first person looked like they were winning early. But over time, the pressure builds, expenses stack, options shrink. The second person quietly builds space, savings, flexibility, freedom. And here's the part nobody talks about. Time starts to work differently for them, because they're not constantly trying to keep up. They're moving at their own pace, and that's powerful. Now let's talk about something subtle, but dangerous. The small decisions, not the big ones, the little ones you barely notice. Because most people think wealth is lost through big mistakes. It's not. It's lost through repetition. That daily coffee that became a habit. That upgrade that didn't really matter. That it's not that much decision you make over and over again. Each one feels harmless. But stacked together, they shape your entire life. And here's the tricky part. When you're surrounded by people doing the same thing, it feels normal, so you don't question it. You just move with it. Until one day, you look back and realize how much it actually cost you. Not just money, but options. Because every unnecessary expense is a trade. You're giving up something in the future for something small right now. And most people don't see that trade clearly. But the ones who build real wealth? They do. Not in a stressful way. Not in a restrictive way. Just with awareness, they understand that every decision has a direction, and they choose carefully. Now here's where things start to shift even deeper. Because it's not just about spending less. It's about what happens after you earn. Most people treat money the same way. It comes in, it sits in their account, and then they decide what to do with it. Spend. Save. Maybe invest if they feel like it. But that approach relies on something fragile. Willpower. And willpower runs out. Especially when life gets busy. When you're tired. When you just want to enjoy something. That's when decisions slip. And over time, those small slips add up. But the people who move differently? They remove the decision entirely. The money never waits. It moves immediately. Before they even touch it. Before they even think about it. A portion goes straight into building their future. Automatically. No debate. No delay. And what's left? That's what they live on. That one shift changes everything. Because now, you're not trying to be disciplined. You've designed a system that works without you. And over time, that system becomes stronger than motivation. Stronger than mood. Stronger than impulse. It just keeps going, quietly, consistently. Building something in the background while life moves forward. And that's the part most people miss. Real progress doesn't always feel exciting. Sometimes, it feels invisible. And that's where most people get it wrong. Because we've been trained to chase what looks exciting. Quick wins, big moves, visible success. But real growth? It's quiet. Sometimes so quiet, it feels like nothing is happening at all. And that's the dangerous moment. Because when it feels slow, people panic. They start second-guessing. They start looking around again. Comparing. Wondering if they should be doing something else. Something faster. Something louder. And that's how they lose. Not because their plan was wrong, but because they abandoned it too early. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine planning something today. You water it. You check on it. You come back tomorrow. Nothing. A week later. Still nothing. A month later. Still nothing. Now most people would stop. They'd assume it's not working. They'd move on to something else. But underground, something is happening. Roots are forming. Strength is building. And one day, it breaks through. And once it does, growth becomes visible. Fast. But only because of everything that happened before. That's exactly how money works. The early phase is invisible. No applause, no attention, no feeling of progress, just consistency. And that's why so few people stick with it, because it doesn't feed the ego. Now let's talk about something that quietly destroys this process for a lot of people. Comparison. Not real-life comparison. Digital comparison. You wake up, you check your phone, and within minutes, you've seen more success than people used to see in a month. Luxury cars, perfect homes, trips, celebrations, wins, over and over again. And your brain starts doing something dangerous. It starts rewriting your baseline. What used to feel like enough now feels small. What used to feel like progress now feels slow. And without realizing it, you start chasing a moving target, trying to match a lifestyle that was never fully real to begin with. Because here's the truth no one shows you. Behind a lot of those moments, there's pressure, debt, stress, late nights thinking about money. But you don't see that part. You only see the highlight, and your brain fills in the gaps, assuming that's their normal life. So you adjust yours, spend a little more, save a little less, just to feel like you're keeping up. And that's how the cycle begins, quietly, slowly, until one day you realize you're running a race you never even chose. But here's the good news. You can step out of it at any time. And the moment you do, everything becomes clearer. Because now, you're not measuring your life against what you see. You're measuring it against what you're building. And that shift? That's where control comes back. Now let's bring this down to something simple. There's one number That tells you the truth about your financial life. Not your income, not your job, not your lifestyle, what you actually have after everything is counted. What stays. That number is your foundation, and most people avoid it. Not because it's complicated, but because it's honest. It doesn't care how hard you work. It doesn't care how much you earn. It only shows what you've kept. And once you start paying attention to it, something interesting happens. You begin to see patterns where money is slipping, what's growing, what's not. And without forcing anything, you start making better decisions because now you're aware, not guessing, not assuming, just seeing clearly. And clarity changes behavior. Every time. Now here's something that might surprise you. The people who build real wealth are not doing anything complicated. They're not jumping from one strategy to another. They're not chasing every new opportunity. They're not trying to outsmart the system every week. They're doing something much simpler. They pick a path, and they stay on it, even when it feels boring, even when it feels slow, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Because they understand something most people don't. Success doesn't come from constant movement. It comes from staying in the right place long enough. Let that sink in. Because we live in a world that rewards motion. Doing something always feels better than doing nothing. But in this case, doing less, but doing it consistently, wins. Now let's talk about something that quietly influences almost every decision you make. Your environment. The people around you. Not because they tell you what to do, but because they show you what's normal. If everyone around you is upgrading constantly, it starts to feel like you should too. If they spend freely, it feels natural. If they chase certain lifestyles, you begin to absorb that without thinking. And over time, your standards shift, your habits change, your expectations rise. Not because you chose it, but because you adapted. And adaptation is powerful. It can build you, or slowly pull you off track. That's why awareness matters here. You don't have to disconnect. You don't have to isolate yourself. But you do need to decide what influences you allow to shape your life. Because not every lifestyle you see is one you actually want to live. Now here's something most people overlook completely. Privacy, not hiding, not pretending, just not sharing everything. Because the moment people start to estimate what you have, everything changes. Expectations rise, requests increase, assumptions form, and suddenly, you're no longer just managing your own life. You're managing how others see you, and that's exhausting. But when you keep things simple, when you don't feel the need to explain, or prove, or show, you remove that weight completely. You move differently, freely, without pressure, without noise. And that kind of peace is rare, but it's powerful. Now let's take this one step deeper, because at the end of all this, it's not really about money. Not in the way most people think. Money is just a tool. What it really gives you is options. And the quality of your life depends on how many options you have, not how much you show. Think about it. On the ability to say no to something that doesn't feel right. The ability to take a break without panic. The ability to walk away from a bad situation without fear. That's real power. And you don't get that from looking rich. You get that from being stable, from having space, from having control. Now imagine two people again. One looks successful. Everything about their life says they made it. But behind the scenes, they're stretched. Every decision feels heavy. Every month feels tight. They can't slow down. They can't step back. Because everything depends on them maintaining that image. Now the second person doesn't stand out. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. But they have room. They can breathe. They can make decisions calmly. They can take opportunities or ignore them because they're not under pressure. Now ask yourself honestly, which life actually feels better? Because deep down, that's what you're really chasing. Not attention, not validation, peace, control, freedom. And here's the twist. The people who achieve that usually don't look like what you expect. You could sit next to them on a normal day and never know. They don't carry it on their body. They don't display it in their lifestyle. They carry it in their choices, in how they move, in how they think, in how they respond to situations. Calm, measured, unbothered. Because they're not trying to prove anything. They already built what matters. Now think about the long game. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, most people will still be doing the same thing. Trying to keep up, trying to maintain, trying to look like they're winning. And it will keep costing them, slowly, silently, every single year. But if you shift now, if you stop playing that game, something different starts to happen. At first, it won't look like much. It might even feel like you're behind, like you're missing out, like you're not doing enough, but give it time. Because what you're building doesn't show immediately. It grows underneath, quietly. Then one day, you notice something. You're not stressed about money the same way. You're not reacting the same way. You're not chasing the same things anymore. And the gap starts to widen. Not overnight, but steadily. Until eventually, you realize something powerful. You don't need to keep up with anyone, because you're no longer in the same race. And that's the moment everything changes. Because now, you're not trying to look successful. You're actually building a life that works. For you. On your terms. At your pace, no pressure, no performance, just progress. And here's the best part. You don't need permission to start. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to wait for more money. You just need to see things clearly and decide differently, even in small ways. Because small shifts stack. Quietly. Powerfully. Until one day, they become everything. So the next time you see someone showing off their life, pause for a second and remind yourself, you don't know the full story. You don't know the cost. You don't know what it took to maintain that image. But you do know this. You have a choice to build something real or to chase something that only looks real. And once you truly understand that difference, you'll stop chasing and start building. If this changed the way you think even a little bit, take a second right now. Hit the like button so more people can see this. And if you want more videos like this, simple, real, and focused on building a life that actually works, then subscribe. Because this is just the beginning. And the next video might be exactly what you need to hear at the right time. Now take this mindset and run with it. Quietly.